what is the amount of money that you need to have in order for you to take a plunge into becoming an entrepreneur? SpryntZ really is a storytelling platform. It's not a food ordering platform. Food ordering is an outcome of having read the story about a restaurant. SPRYEN is more out of passion. It is my passion project. It's got a lot to do with how I look at my daughter grow up. It's got a lot to do with all the people that I teach physics, chemistry, mathematics during my free time. I teach subjects to kids and I watch them and I see their attention span. So that's how SPRYEN was born. We started seeing kids constantly on the phone. We're, in a way, losing our children to gadgets today.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of Be Your Own Boss. Do you aspire to be an entrepreneur and you want to start your own business? This episode is for you because here we have today someone who has been an entrepreneur for over a decade now, has been a serial entrepreneur. He has started several businesses and have also successfully exited one. But there is more than that we're going to learn today. Picture this. You want to message someone. Let's say you have an important text to send to your friend. You pick up your phone and you want to message your friend, but before you even get to that, you have hundreds of notifications on your phone that you get engaged with, and before you know it, you've spent almost an hour just scrolling or looking at other notifications before even getting to text your friend, and you sometimes even forget why you picked up the phone. Does that sound familiar? If that sounds familiar to you, we have someone who can explain to us how his company, SPRYEN, is helping especially children get out of the digital addiction. So as parents, this is extremely important. And other than that, he also runs a business here in Dubai, which helps restaurant owners connect with their customers in a much better way than what they think is possible today with all the ride apps that we have. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm super delighted and excited to welcome Srihari on our show. Srihari Prahalad is the founder of SPRYEN, the company that I told you about, and SpryntZ, which is a company that helps restaurant owners connect with their customers in a better way. Sri, thank you so much for taking our time and joining us here on the Be Your Own Boss podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Sachin. Thanks for that delightful introduction. Thanks very much. I'm very glad to be here.
Well, there is so much to say about you. Like I don't think I could do justice by including everything. You're an entrepreneur. You are a musician. Yep. You're a sportsman.
Yep.
You are an innovator. A lot. I want to understand first, like when you transition into entrepreneurship,
yeah,
right? Was SPRYEN the first company that you started?
Not really. I think the first venture was over, actually 20 years ago, I should say. Wanted to do something in the hospitality industry. So the first venture was something that I started in the service apartment business.
Service apartments?
In Bangalore. So back then, this whole concept was not even there. We shut it down pretty quickly. So that was actually the first business.
Probably you were like too ahead of your time.
I would like to think so, yeah.
Yeah,
that would be
early.
a good reason to attribute. Yeah. And then very quickly moved on to starting numerous businesses. And what brought me into Dubai is starting a data management arm of one of the companies here. That's how I landed up here.
Okay.
And after that, I ended up starting another firm called Scalers and Victors, SNV in short, which is the data management business, probably the one that I run the longest. And that was the one that I also exited a couple of years ago. After that, there are two more companies that I'm running currently, SpryntZ and SPRYEN, like you mentioned.
Wow. To be honest, there aren't many people like you who can master so many different things. For our listeners, I think it'll be helpful if we can understand the background right from the beginning. So if you can tell us about your parents, your siblings, your childhood memories, what kind of a child were you?
Sure. So I was born in Bangalore, but that's where my relationship ended. because I was brought up completely in a small city called Pondicherry,
Oh, wow. Okay.
which is Union Territory in India.
It's also called Puducherry.
Puducherry right now. And I did all of my schooling there. In fact, my schooling happened in one of the very old schools in India. So right now they must be celebrating over 200 years of existence.
Wow.
Yeah, so back then that school was used for coming up with priests and nuns. So it was a seminary, actually. So the school is also called Petit Seminar, which is a small seminary in French because it's a French colony. So that's where I did my schooling. I have two siblings, both of them are elder to me. They also came out of the same school. So as you can imagine, if your brother is in the same school, then you have a lot of issues. So a lot of expectations on me. My eldest brother is a bookworm.
Okay.
He would go to a library and finish off all the books, and then he would go back and say, is there anything else that I can pick? The second one is a sports guy, completely into sports. He's a two-time national volleyball player. I guess I had a unique vantage point where not only biologically I got a mixture of both of them, but also from a perspective of epigenetics, so to speak, from the environment perspective as well. So I got a mix of both. So I'm truly blessed that way.
Yeah.
My parents, both of them, father was a businessman throughout. So from the time we've known, we've always had businesses. He was running factories, and we used to support that. Mom is also a bachelor in physics in BSc, and but she stayed on to just bring the three of us. We were a handful, I guess. So yeah, so after the schooling there, then I moved on to study in Mysore University, and there I did my environmental engineering. So we had quite a lot of options as part of being in Union Territories. You get options all over India.
Yeah.
Most of them don't know about it, but if you study in a UT in India, then you get options. So we had numerous options. I had a lot of REC options and other options, electrical, computer science, but somehow nobody took environmental. I said, I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
Just because nobody took it. So that's what I ended up doing. So then I held university ranks throughout as I studied. And right after that, I started to work. And soon after that, I moved on to do my exec MBA from XLRI, which was the very first batch that had an MBA where you partially do in the campus and you partially do off the campus if you're a working professional.
Was this in Bangalore, based in Bangalore? Or?
Yeah, at that time I was based in Bangalore. So I ended up doing that. So right after I did that, I was working in DEC, Digital Equipments, which was bought over by Compaq.
Okay.
And then Compaq eventually bought over HP, so I became an HP employee. And so I started to help build centers of HP and also help to transition jobs into India from different parts of HP around the world. So I was partly instrumental in setting up their offices in Dalian, the first China center. So I was there.
You were in China?
Yeah, in Dalian. At that time, Dalian was the very first IT hub of China.
Okay.
So I was there, and then in Singapore and almost all parts of the US, trying to understand the business and transition it into different parts of the world. So then this whole thing came up where I had to come off to Dubai. I wanted to shift jobs because somehow I felt that I was in a very large company. I wasn't learning enough. So I came out and said, if I have to go out on my own, these are not the skills for me to acquire. I need to know how to run a BD shop, a chai kara, right? So I said that is where you learn really how you run a business. So
end to end, you manage that entire business end to end.
Exactly. So what I did was I started browsing through the alumni in XLRI, and I started looking for firms that are small, that have just started. So there were a few people that interviewed me. In fact, the firm that hired me initially rejected me. And I sent them a long email stating that you're making a mistake by rejecting me. And they said, wow, that's audacity, right? We would like to meet you again.
Yeah.
So they called me up and they said, look, these are the skill sets that we need. You have none. So they were talking of hard skills, right? So I said, well, that's not required at all. Because if that's the way you want to hire somebody that's going to have to manage your business, then you're doing the wrong thing. So you need to be looking at hiring somebody who can manage things, not really know the hard skills. And I ended up getting the job because I just persisted and plowed my way through. And so they got their first deal to set up in Dubai. So that's how I came here and spent about three and a half years with them. And after that, by that time, my brother had started off S&B in India a little bit.
Okay.
And he was constantly calling me up, and every conversation he would talk about the perils of being an employee versus all the nice things of being your own boss, which is the name of your podcast. And he would keep talking about all the good things about being your own boss.
And he had started SMV, the company.
So by the time I was in Dubai, he was in India, so it started that firm already.
Right.
At that time, it was an ideation firm. So anybody who had an idea, we would go in and build it to fruition, make it commercial. So that's what he wanted to do. And by that time, here for the last 3.5 years, I was completely immersed in data management related services. Back then, nobody knew what data was.
What year are we talking about here?
This is 2005-06.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. At one point, he kept pestering me, and I was leaning towards it. But then the whole point of, I'm not going to get a salary anymore, right? What am I going to do? So at one point, I gave in, and I wrote the email in the night, I remember distinctly.
The resignation one?
Yeah. Then the next day morning, I was out.
Yeah.
That was
But you mentioned about the financial side here, that you would not get a salary, and that was a concern that you had, right? How did you overcome that? Because it's not only about the emotional side, right? There is a financial courage.
So throughout my life, I have always drawn my motivation and inspiration based off of what I would have told people, right? Kind of sounds funny, but if I tell you, Sachin, starting tomorrow, I'm going to go to the gym every day. The moment I say this to you, I'm acknowledging to myself that now I have to live up to this. Now Sachin has been informed, right? So which means I make you a pseudo police on myself, right? For all of them who lack self-motivation, this is one of the techniques, by the way. So, accountability, right? So part of the process was also for me, one part was that I would always end up being an entrepreneur. So this was like something that I've always told people. And in fact, this job that I got, I told them very clearly that this is my last job. You want to take the risk, you can take it. Because after this job, it's highly likely that I'll do something related to what I learned here. So you're going to be at a big risk. They took the risk, it paid off for them, but then that was another thing. So that was a clear ultimatum.
Yeah.
And then I distinctly remember there was one article that I read which said, what is the amount of money that you need to have in order for you to take a plunge into becoming an entrepreneur? And that article was like 3 paragraphs. Maybe if I Google it, I'll figure it should come up. The name of the article has a word which I can't tell out in the podcast, but it's pretty easy. I'll tell it to you after the podcast. But it essentially, the whole article, you go through it, it comes down to a point where it simply says the amount of money that you need to have in order to become an entrepreneur is exactly 0.
Wow.
It's exactly 0. That article had a lasting impact on me. So when you analyze this, you realize that the motivation that you need to become an entrepreneur is the lack of money. If you have it, you will never become a good one.
That's profound.
You allow that to motivate you. The rest of it, just by having the tag of an entrepreneur, the world around you will make you a super duper entrepreneur. Trust me on this. Employees will quit on you. Your family will start shouting at you. Everybody will keep saying that you shouldn't have taken this step. These are good things that will hit you. You like it or not, you take that path, the world will make you one, and will make a good one out of you. As long as you have the resilience, and whatever that is called, that when you twist the plastic, it doesn't really break. Right? If you know that you're not going to break, then just stay there. You'll become good at it. So,
what about the family? Like, did they support your decision of quitting and becoming an entrepreneur? As in, by family, I mean your wife and kids.
So I've never had a formal decision-making process that I have everybody involved into. I take the decision, and then I buy people into it. So it was like the day I wrote that email, and the next day morning I said, I don't have a job.
Wow.
So now there is nothing that could be done, right? In a way, it's rude if I think back at it, but that's the only way I've known to run my life. We have 3 boys at home, right? If I had a sister, probably I would have had more conversations, I would think, before I make a decision. But we were just making decisions on the fly. So I used to play a lot of table tennis back then. So going to tournaments, coming back home late in the night, doing whatever, no questions asked at home. So that's how we were brought up, right? So it kind of seeped into the personality that I am today.
You think you make a decision and then you move on with it.
Yeah, just move on with it. If I cannot think of one single way of failure if you stick to what you've decided. I can't think of a mode of failure here at all. The fact that you are persistent is the secret of success. It is not the outcome. So you persist, you don't get the outcome. I don't use the word failure. You persist, you don't get the outcome. You persist again, you persist again, you persist again. Either you change your expectation of the outcome, which means you're successful, or you get the desired outcome, which means you're successful. So the fact that you persist is actually going to lead the way.
Wow.
So you make a decision, you persist.
You
will find goodness in every decision that you make.
You wrote that email at night, and then what was your immediate next step?
So that's a tough one, because I had a lot of legal obligations when I let them, when I went out, for obvious reasons. So I didn't have a lot that I could play with. The customers I had here, I couldn't go back to them for a certain cool-off period. So what I did, I converted myself into a freelancing mode, and I continued to do what I was doing. So I took up a couple of opportunities in the US. So I was based out of here. I would travel every couple of months there, stay for a few days, come back here.
So these were like data, because you were
all related to data. But it was a freelancing mode.
Right.
So that's what I could offer best, and that's what I was offering, related to data management services. So a couple of offers in the US which I picked up, and then as my cooling off period was ending, I could come back here, and then I could source jobs that we could deliver out of our offices in India. So very quickly, before I know, we grew to about 40, 50, we grew to 80, then 100, then 120, then 150. We just kept growing.
Employees?
Yeah.
Wow. So one important question, I think this will be very helpful for people who are thinking of quitting and starting their own. What was that cooling period?
So in my case, it was a year.
Okay.
Yeah. For example, when I exited, 2 years, this has a different cooling off period. So it depends on the contract, depends on how you negotiate it.
Right.
That's one of the key parts of the negotiation. Right. So the first one was an employment cool off period, right? So not really. So when I exited, that's more serious. So that cool off period is a lot more serious. This one is employment. End of the day, as long as I'm not going back to those respective customers, it's all right.
So you could be in the same service and be a competitor to them. That's okay.
That's
but
all right.
you can't go to the same. You can't take their customers, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Which
you
is
find
fair.
you find new ones, and that's exactly what I did. There was not a single one that I took that was existing. I found all of them are new, completely new.
What was that process like when you started, and you found your projects in the US? You said like you found your customers in the US. How did that happen for someone who's starting a business? Biggest challenge people face is like, how do I get clients?
So these are good challenges to have, right? So many people that I talk to, I speak on TEDx, I speak on so many platforms. This is a question that everybody asks. And the way they ask this question, I get a feeling that they are afraid to be in that situation. The first thing I tell them is that's the very good challenge to have, right? How you find your customer is really an outcome of how you built relationships from day one in your life. If your relationships that you've built are based off of credibility, which means if somebody were to tell me, so the easiest question to ask is, why would anybody come to you, Srihari? So why would somebody come and talk to Srihari today, right? If the answer is, well, they would come and talk to Srihari because he gives you unbiased views, he gives you straightforward answers, and if I feel like crying, I can go to him, then your relationship gets an A+. That relationship gets an A+ for you, right? But if the answer was, oh, Srihari, that's all right, he talks a lot. There's nothing that comes out of it. He's fun to be around. I'll invite him for a beer. Then that's B+, right? So if your relationships are in A+ category, that is where you will get your deal. Because they exactly know who you are, what you bring to the table. And when I worked with firms, they exactly knew what I would bring to the table and how serious I was for the outcomes, which mattered a lot to them. And that outcome that mattered a lot to them was something that I took on myself to make it happen, so they know how serious I am. So that's an A+ relationship. Now imagine, Sachin, you go there, and now you're on your own, and you go to those people and you talk to them and tell them, listen, now on my own, I can give these kind of services to you. The trust is already built in the relationship, so you don't have to go back and reclaim the trust, right? Now all that they have to do is convince themselves and other decision-making processes around them to give a chance. So I got my chances that way. I got my chances from colleagues that I worked with. I got my chances from people that I have delivered before. I got my chances from those that trusted, that knew that I was serious about what I'm doing. Right? That's how I got my chances. Whilst they couldn't give me a direct chance, but they definitely put in a word.
Yeah, and they played a role in connecting you to the right
influencing
people.
to make sure, in making sure that I got a chance.
So in a way, the process of getting clients begins way before you even begin as an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
Right? It begins at the...
Absolutely. That explains why the whole world are not entrepreneurs. Ideally, should be. But what you're saying explains why that isn't the case. For a lot of people, entrepreneurship is not their cup of tea. That's all right. It's perfectly fine. So there are a lot of people that are socially extremely good, right? But I would only go to them if I have a personal problem. I will never go to them if I have a technical problem or I have a problem in business, right? Difficult for them to become an entrepreneur. Well, there are solutions that they could offer as well. But certainly it's going to be a difficult, a slightly arduous path, I would say. So, you're right. So then, so you started this business, and after a year, I mean, you started getting more clients here in Dubai. And tell us about that process of like how you took it to an exit point and you exited from there. So first confession, I never wanted to exit. I was looking for investment and I found a buyer. So I think that's how it always goes. Most of them don't really plan to exit. It just happens. in due conversation. That's how it happened with me as well. So it really got to a point where I think as you build the firms one after the other, you start segregating duties with different people in your company, and you build a structure around it. So the initial, I would say 5-6 years was just lost. We never had a structure around anything because it was my baby. But after the first 5-6 years, then you start to realize that you can't do much if you're just doing things on your own and you keep everything with yourself. Then slowly the realization of delegation comes into play. Then you look at people that can take on a lot more. You start giving those roles to them. And as you give them, you keep assessing whether they are going to perform them or not. Because if not, then you have to quickly swap. So you always have one eye there and make sure that happens. Then slowly and steadily they take over. Then your role just ends up becoming a role of a motivator. Keep motivating them. Make sure that they get the job done. And they have enough motivation to do that. Then that sort of takes on. When that moves on to a point where you have different pockets which are running on their own, at that point in time, that is where you have mind space to start thinking something big for your firm.
Yeah.
Now what can I do, right? So that's when we did a massive rebranding campaign of SNV. Our logos were all changed. Everything was completely changed. We brought a different structure to the firm. The moment I did that, 3 years from there, things started to look very different. And that's when we said, okay, now let's pivot ourselves to the next step. Why don't we look at investors? So I spent a good year or so talking to over 150 investors.
150 investors?
Easily. Wow. I must be, I should be exaggerating actually, but I'm not. So in fact, I'm underplaying it.
Yeah.
And then you get a psyche of what they are looking for, what they think. So more than 80% of them, they don't give you confidence, right? There are only a handful of investors that really understand the pain of an entrepreneur, because most of them have never been an entrepreneur themselves. They just have come into money, or they're managing somebody's money. So they are right in their jobs, right? They get thousands. Who are you? You're just one of the 1,000, right? If it fits, it fits, right? But you know the pain. You're not one of 1,000. You struggle for decades, right? So anyways, it's their job versus this job. So, and at a certain point in time, then you realize that how do you quickly understand who are the people that will get you? And then it really boiled down to top 3, I would really say. One in Singapore, one in India, the one in the US. And then the whole discussion moved on to a total buyout as opposed to just investing.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had multiple term sheets. One of it it was almost on the brink of signing, didn't do that. Then the second term sheet didn't work out my way. The third term sheet was good enough, so persisted and moved on.
Okay. So after you exited, what was life like? Talk us through that mindset of, it's like a marriage that is over now, right?
Mixed emotions. People that have worked very long with us, and handing them off to someone else. But most importantly, I think for my brother and I, we thought that we will take some time off. That didn't really happen. The company that bought us out also hired us for some time.
Yeah, there's usually that 1 year period or 2 years period where you stay on board, and
I didn't even last that.
Okay.
I just couldn't. I don't know what it is to report to somebody right now, other than my wife and my daughter, but I really don't know. So I lasted only half of that period, and then I very politely went to the founder of that firm and I said, I can't take this anymore. So portfolio was brilliant. I was managing worldwide resources and hundreds and hundreds of people reporting and whatnot. All of that was good, but it just didn't feel. So when we resigned and I resigned and then honestly, I just wanted to sit back and spend some time off, and sat back and look at the stars. But instead of looking at the stars, we started to talk about what next. So very quickly, SpryntZ was born, and this was based out of Dubai. And the third founder of SpryntZ he's a restaurateur on his own right now.
Okay.
And the kind of issues that he started telling us is something that we were naive back then. This was 2 years ago. So, but in hindsight, I don't regret it at all. So he came up with a list of issues, and then we said this can be sorted pretty easily.
So issues, or you mean reasons why the idea wouldn't work, or issues that the restaurants were facing as
the issues that the restaurants were facing in the current ecosystem of aggregators and everyone else.
Right.
So then it's sort of like an onion. We had to peel them off layer by layer, and each layer has its own solution, and that's how we ended up building SpryntZ. Right.
Wow.
SpryntZ really is a storytelling platform. It's not a food ordering platform. Food ordering is an outcome of having read the story about a restaurant. So why it resonated with me so well is because of the same entrepreneurial journeys that I went through is exactly what every single restaurant owner is going through. But there is no platform in the entire world that allows him to create his own story on the platform, right? And therefore, because you as a consumer like the story and know the pains and hence would like to order food from them, is the difficult journey that we're embarking on right now. So I always tell people my competition is not the aggregators here. I am not at all interested to compete in that space. My competition is that consumer who today mindlessly orders because he sees the word free or sees the word offer or a coupon out there, which does not necessarily direct you to that restaurant, which has that entrepreneur who has spent years building something, right, and stands up for quality, who's right next door to you, by the way, but still you choose the coupon, which is far away from you, and you're being directed there, right? I felt this is not right. The engagement is not happening. And that's where we ended up building SpryntZ, which is really a self-service platform where a restaurant can make themselves look good, make themselves look however they want to the consumer.
Okay.
Talk about their story and tell the consumer the pains that they've undergone. The consumer needs to understand that when you go out to order food from, there are so many elements that go into it, right? So simply put, a restaurant is restricted by so many ways. The first way is the location that he's chosen. The second, the freshness of the food. How far can his food travel? Only a finite distance.
Right.
Third, he's restricted by the people living around him.
Yeah.
The people living around him are his consumers. They are not going to increase day by day, unless there's a new block coming up or something like that. That's not going to increase. Your food radius is not going to increase. You're not going to suddenly make some food that is going to remain forever fresh and hot.
Yeah.
Right? And the location, you're there. You're not you just can't shut down and move the locations every day.
Yeah.
That's not possible either. So if you put all these restrictions together, what really does a restaurant have is just a finite number of consumers. Right? So what matters really is engaging them and building a community. And that's what SpryntZ really is trying to do. So we're allowing the restaurants to build that community, keep them coming back to them. Right? So one of the informal surveys we did, I could ask this to you, Sachin. If I were to ask you, Sachin, in a year, how many net new restaurants do you order food from? Net new.
Net new. maybe one or two.
Absolutely.
Yeah, usually it's like, unless somebody recommends and says, hey, this restaurant is really awesome, and then I'm like, okay, let's order. Usually it's like that same restaurant or you have that habit.
So that is one of the key data points that has informed how we develop sprints, right? What we realized is this number is between 2 to 5.
Right.
Honestly. If I were to ask you, Chinese food tonight, can you order such, and there's only 1 or 2 restaurants that will come to your mind.
Absolutely.
If I were to tell you, okay, let's do pizza, you know there are only 2 or 3 pizza joints. In fact, only 1 when it comes to pizza, which you really trust, right? And I had to tell you, okay, let's order something really wacky and spicy tonight. You know exactly where to go to because you know you've tried, you've tested it, it doesn't harm your stomach, it works well for you. There's so many unconscious factors that we've ticked off, which you don't really sit down and think about. But it has worked for you because it hasn't troubled you.
Yeah.
That food works well with your system.
Yeah.
Right?
And I like the food, I've tried it before, so.
Exactly. So if you really come down to that, then what does a restaurant have then? The restaurant has one Sachin, has one Srihari who believes in them, right? But the restaurant doesn't know who Sachin is. The restaurant doesn't know how many times you ordered from them. The restaurant has no engagement with Sachin. If Sachin walks into the restaurant, in spite of the fact that you might have ordered there 100 times, you're still another guy who just walked in for dine-in, right? We're trying to change that. Now the restaurant will have an engagement. They can tell the story. And going by the story, we're trying to attack that mindset of consumers that be a little more deliberate when you place your food order, because food can make or break you. We know that today, right? You eat junk, we know what's going to happen to you. So food can make or break you. That's a very important decision to make. So would you want to make that decision based off of an algorithm that throws the top 3 restaurants on top just because they happen to be under the offer banner beyond 50%? Would you want to really understand the chef and the people behind who are creating your food and then order it? I think this mindfulness in ordering food would go a long way.
Yeah.
And I think this should disrupt the market. It's a matter of time.
Well, also, like if I think of it from a consumer perspective, only 2 reasons why I would order from a particular restaurant. And this is my personal experience. Either I have eaten there and I know that the food is good, and this is the like, let's say if I want paratha, the best paratha is from this particular place.
Right.
Or a friend or somebody has recommended that you must try this place, and it's only based on past experience about the food. It's always about the end product here.
Absolutely.
Right? And you bring in a new perspective here about the story of the restaurant owner himself, and that's that story. And I would never even have thought of the restaurant story.
So it's the same way how investors have treated me when I went asking for money. I'm one of 1,000, right? The same way a consumer today is treating a restaurant. After all, you're one of 1,000. But that's not true. There is flesh and blood and sweat behind every single restaurant.
Yeah.
And just because he chose a location which was not developed enough, he can't be punished for it. At least the people around him should know it, should understand his story. Should be able to, in a very simple way, help him by placing an order.
Yeah. You bring in a very important point here, the story of the entrepreneur, the story of the restaurant owner. And I think this is something that I'm just saying out loud here on the podcast, that I will make it a point that I bring in a lot of restaurant owners here on the podcast and share their stories with the world. This is an important thing. You've made me realize that the importance of that story. Like, everybody has that struggle. And
yes, absolutely. So every time I've spoken to over 250 restaurant owners right now. We've signed up about 100 restaurants on our application. Every time I talk to restaurant owners, one of the things that so some of them are very dismissive, right? They think that, oh, he's just another guy, he doesn't know what he's doing, which is fair. I think they've seen too many people in the market, so they probably don't give enough weight to it. But a lot of them sit down and actually explain to me, when you open a dine-in area, the amount of effort that goes in, the constant inspections that happen, the fact that you have to keep up your standard there, right? And this gentleman is going through the whole process of keeping this going. And then there is one guy who opens up a cloud kitchen with almost zero investment, right? He just makes himself look good on a platform. Digitally. And he throws in offers after offers because he doesn't have overheads, right? And people just fall for that, right? Now, how do these two journeys compare? Now, one might simply say, well, these are the perils of the competitive world. Just live with it. Don't whine about it, right? That's one way of looking at it. Fair enough. I'm not discounting that viewpoint at all. But still, the journey that he has a lot more weightage had the consumer known about it. Today, over 30 to 40% of the brands that you're ordering from don't have a physical outlet.
Yeah.
Consumers don't even know that, right? Digitally, they look brilliant.
Yeah. Well, that's about the restaurant, the SpryntZ, right? And I also want to talk about SPRYEN, which which is also something very, very important. Digital addiction. Tell us about that. Like, did you start SPRYEN before SpryntZ?
It kind of happened together. I think SPRYEN, I kicked it off. Currently, it's running in India. SPRYEN is more out of passion. It is my passion project.
Okay.
I don't think I'm looking to make money there. It's my passion project. Now, what is happening with SPRYEN is, it's got a lot to do with how I look at my daughter grow up. It's got a lot to do with all the people that I teach physics, chemistry, mathematics during my free time. I teach subjects to kids and I watch them and I see their attention span. I see the kind of distractions they are having today. And then I compare that to myself, my own childhood. And I realize that there are a lot of gaps in terms of how a Gen Z person today learns versus how we have learned. There are two different paths leading to the same outcome maybe, but the learning completes itself when you take the path together with it. It's just not the outcome, right? So if it's just the outcome, then that's just plain knowledge. I can just rattle off 50 different fun facts and get away with it, right? But that's really not learning, right? So that's how SPRYEN was born. We started seeing kids constantly on the phone. I started having parents coming to me and saying, my kid listens to you. Can you ask him not to be on any one of these social media apps? Is it possible that you can explain to him or her that they need to listen to me because I'm a parent, right? So, so we're in a way losing our children to gadgets today. And somebody once said, this is like allowing somebody that you don't know to constantly talk to your child and affect the way he thinks.
Yeah.
If this were to happen in the physical world, you would never allow that to your child. But in the digital world, which is kind of under-regulated, we're happy with it. We allow the child to constantly talk to people that
oh my God,
you have no idea.
You know, can I use an analogy here? Like recently there was a movie called Shaitan, okay, R. Madhavan's movie.
I've seen that.
Yeah. So in Shaitan, it's a family, and this child, the girl in that family, is being possessed. So there is this the guy, the bad guy, R. Madhavan. He comes and he controls her thinking, and he decides, he tells her to do, and she does whatever he says.
Wow.
Okay. She is completely in his control.
Yeah.
And the parents helplessly struggle to free her. You know, practically, this is what is happening with the gadgets. The mobiles are the shaitan who's like completely taking control over the children, and like parents are helplessly watching.
We are losing our children's dreams to social media. We are losing our children's learnings to social media. We are losing our children's attention to social media. We are losing our child to social media, practically, right?
Yes.
Or to screens.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever the case may be. So there are also, by the way, physical implications to this, right? Like the light that it's emitting, the radiation that it emits is also harmful to us, right? But keeping that aside, I think the mental toll that it takes is something that we need to bring about a moderation in this.
Right, and especially the influence that it has on the thinking of the child, right? Like, so that thought process is controlled and influenced by that. So tell us about, like, I mean, we've spoken a lot about the problem now. Let's talk about the solution. So how does SPRYEN work really? What's the business model? How does it add value to the society?
Sure. So SPRYEN is an acronym on its own. So S standing for self-reflection, P for personalized goals, R for restoration, Y for your social health, E for environment, where you're in, an N for new habit formation, right? So there are different elements of this that can be brought together. The reason the solution is not as a very simple solution like take my app and you're done is because the factors that contribute to this problem are coming from different directions. So when you start addressing multiple factors, your solution also looks a little complicated. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution, unfortunately, right? So I'll give you an example. So one of the things we have is a SPRYEN detox box, as we call it. It's just a box which has a timer on top of it. You put your phone inside, you switch on the timer, and it can go on for 1 hour all the way up to 10 days. Once you put the timer on, the box locks itself. The only way you can get the phone out is to break it with a massive hammer, right? So this I fondly call it as a habit-breaking box. Now, I'm not saying put your phones there and sit there, because we are advocating balance in digital habits. We are not advocating killing digital habits. So what do you do? People ask me, okay, how does this become a solution? So the way this becomes a solution is, every day in the morning, all of us wake up to the phone. Every night, we sleep to the phone. Every person I know of takes the phone to the commode and poops with the phone, thereby, on an average, increasing anywhere between 60 to 80% of the time that it would normally take to sit on the commode. Now it's gone up because thanks to the phone, right? These are crucial moments where a digital habit is creeping in. Now, why I like to call this a digital habit? Because during our days, this habit was non-existent. Because there's no digital habits at all, right? These are new things, right? And these are creeping in. As a parent, as a caregiver, you yourself are prey to these habits. So the child has no role model. The child does not know what it is to stay without it, because the father is on the call while eating. The mother is preparing food, watching YouTube videos. The child on the table is sitting and wondering what to do, is going to go to the screen, right? So, look, okay, putting all of these together, how does the solution on this box work? All that I tell people is, put your phone between 7 to 9 in the morning, invariably, all of you, at home, inside the box. You choose the time, 7 to 8, 7 to 9. Start small, because you will have withdrawal symptoms. You will have anxiety. You won't know what to do. You will have to form new habits. You have to kill that time. And guess what happens? People start talking to each other at home. Really talking. And if you put them during your breakfast time or during your lunch time or during the supper time, right, there is conversations.
Yeah.
You start to make memes amongst yourselves. The father addresses the wife differently now. The wife addresses the child differently now. There are these small things which, when you die, you will feel good about, right? That you can recollect.
Yeah.
Those things are not happening anymore. They
Yeah.
are written off to digital devices.
Yeah, I think
That will come
meal
back.
times are a great time for this. That's the great window for-
I would even say use it in the morning, put it outside in the bathroom, before going to the bathroom, put it in, then go to the bathroom. Put 10 minutes there. So make sure that you're out,
Yeah.
right? So that's just one of the ways, right? And then we have a bunch of other products that we have come up with which restricts radiation, which is useful for pregnant women for development of the fetus, so that the phone is not constantly kept. So we have a lap safe where you can put the laptop on it and it completely absorbs the radiation. So there's nothing that goes down below.
Great.
And the same thing can be used when women are pregnant, to wear a band around the belly. So the fetus is protected. You can still use the phone, but the fetus is protected, because these are developmental times. If you introduce these radiation at the time of development, then the genes tend to express itself differently because it has a different stressor coming from the environment. It feels the need to react to it. What is this constant energy at a certain 2.4 gigahertz, whatever it is, it constantly hitting me? So then the fetal developmental genes are suddenly woken up, and now they have to react to this environment, and now they have to develop differently. This is not what we want.
And can you tell us, like, for parents to understand clearly, how does SPRYEN help children get out of digital addiction?
So one is, we first understand the pattern, the current pattern of the child, the habit of the child rather. At what points does the child go to the phone, right? Which in most cases is because of neglect from the parent. I'm sorry to say this, but this is our finding for the last 2 years, right? Once we identify that, we sort of try and attack the need for the child to be on the phone. Is our first point of attack, right? And then we reduce the number of hours in a day on a steady manner. Using a detox box, for example, is a good example. As you reduce those number of hours that they start looking at the phone, and this applies to the whole family, by the way, not just the child. The child is understanding that there are ways in which you can kill time without having to be on a screen. That is the time you introduce new habits, which we come up with based on the child's
Interests.
where the child is leaning towards, right? The best thing that has worked for me, magic tricks.
Magic tricks.
The child loves it, right?
Oh.
And I do a lot of tricks myself. So when you teach the child something,
Yeah.
they love it. Another good thing is ventriloquism. Childs love to talk,
Yeah.
have a doll talk instead of them, right? And these are tricks which even near adolescents, they like these things, right? So
Or even
just-
drawing, painting together. I mean, I know my son, like when
Oh,
he's
yeah.
not using the tab, he's like, not using
Painting
the
all
iPad,
the
he's
time.
painting all the time,
Yeah.
which is,
Exactly. So in painting, there are so many ways to make it interesting,
yeah.
right? Without spending a penny, you can make it interesting, right? So what I'm trying to tell you from a solution point of view is not, I'm not saying that, okay, it's a one size fit all. I'm not giving you a one word solution to this, unfortunately, because there isn't any.
Yeah.
So this is a combined effort. So SPRYEN solutions are all a journey. We've been working with people for long periods. So it's a journey. It has to, it is something that the environment also should be conducive to. Just telling the child what to do, but returning home and not finding anybody following that, the child will go back to his old habits.
Yeah.
So the environment also has to be conducive. People around the child must give them the confidence that this is not the only world. There is also another way to live.
Yeah. So Srihari, one very important question. People who are watching this, how can they reach out to you, or how can they benefit from SPRYEN, from the services that you provide at SPRYEN?
So everything is on spryen.com.
Spryen.com.
SPRYEN.com. Everything is out there. Our products are out there. Our consulting services are out there. They can reach out to us. We will work closely with them. We understand the degree of the problem and take it from there.
Yeah.
A lot of people just come to us and buy lap safes from us, which is okay. A lot of people buy grounding solutions from us so that you don't carry the electromagnetic waves and those potentials in you, so you continuously ground. That's another topic for another day. But they buy those solutions from us.
Yeah.
A lot of people just buy headphones from us. We have radiation-free headphones, which just works out of tubes. So rather than taking the magnet and the coil around it and putting it deep into your ears as close to the pineal glands as possible, which are responsible for various bodily functions, what we have is just a tube, complete tube. The speaker is out here, and the speaker already gives out here, and just the waves go to your ears. It's like listening to natural sounds around us. So a lot of people just come and buy that product. And
Wow.
So, but these are points of commitment towards a journey where you have digital minimalism and moderation.
Yeah.
A simple buying of a product doesn't make it go away, but these are commitment points. Now that you've bought this,
Yeah.
what more can I do?
Right.
Right?
You're
That's-
one step closer
Exactly.
and take another and take another.
Exactly. And then you just move on from there.
Yeah. Another important question
Yeah.
about the restaurant owners.
Yeah.
We spoke about SpryntZ.
Yeah.
So how can restaurant owners who are watching this reach out to you for SpryntZ?
So SpryntZ is SPRYNTZ.com again. They can go to SpryntZ.com and they could drop a note there and we will reach out to them. Or I have a couple of salespeople here that are constantly looking out.
Right.
Or for that matter, Srihari Prahalad, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn, drop a note. We will immediately get in touch with them.
Yeah. Srihari is famous, so just Google Srihari Prahalad and you will find him there. So, and we'll also include the links of both in the show notes and in the YouTube description,
Absolutely.
so people can reach out to you.
Thank you very much, Sachin.
Thank you. So, one final question as we wrap up here, Sri. How was your experience being on the Be Your Own Boss podcast?
I've done this with a lot of people in the past. To be very honest, I also have a story to tell, but I don't find a platform. And I think this will become that platform. So to me, this experience has been good, fantastic. And I look forward to more. Maybe you'll call me again.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And it's such an honor for me. I'm telling you, like I said in the beginning, not many people are at the level of, skills and knowledge and competence that you are at. This is fantastic. And it's an honor that I get an opportunity to interview you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sachin. It feels the same here. I don't see you any different to me. You are accomplished in your own rights.
Thank you so much, Sri. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that was Srihari Prahalad, the founder of SPRYEN and SpryntZ and many other companies that we just spoke about. And you've been watching and listening to Be Your Own Boss.